Do this. Hey guys, my name is Lou Puschelberg and I'm here with Jason Campbell. We're just going to start the stream a little bit early just to make sure that our audio and video is all clear and you guys can hear us well. And actually, should we switch chairs maybe too? Or do you want to?
Oh, wait, I'll boost this
Yeah,
one
there
up.
you go.
Yeah, like 4 inches tall.
So yeah, so let us know if you guys can hear us clearly in the comments. Just want to make sure everything is smooth sailing, and we will begin at 7 p.m. Sharp. Jason and I too are just gonna maybe just have a little fireside chat here for a couple minutes. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in the YouTube comments. We have one of our other colleagues, Liz Haluwage, working on the back end tonight, so she will be organizing all of your comments and sending them through Google Drive. So we'll review those kind of as we go. So anytime throughout the presentation or starting now, if you guys have questions, comments about virtual reality technology, about the industry, about how you get started, about our courses, about the business, about anything at all, just toss it in the comments and we'll answer those at the end of the session.
Yeah, please do. We love questions. Questions are my favorite part.
So before we get started, some big news in virtual reality last week or this week. HTC Vive, which is the headset that we're going to be working on tonight and showing you guys how to build on in Unity, announced that they have a new wireless headset called Vive Focus, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So wireless is great. It means, I think, more adoption, more people can show VR to other people. It also makes it a lot easier for businesses. If you're building a business application, for you to bring that to your clients, bring it to trade shows, bring it really wherever on a job site. So wireless VR is cool, and wireless VR is coming first from Vive, and before Vive, Facebook announced that they have a new wireless headset called Oculus Go.
Yeah, standalone is pretty incredible. It's a pretty good idea. It's really kind of what mobile's been doing, and now it has a sole purpose of VR, which is impressive.
Yeah, when someone says like 3 versus 6 degrees of freedom, like what does that mean on a wireless headset?
So 6 degrees of freedom is like full. Well, normally it's used for chipsets, but
Do you want this?
So we basically are including our position tracking on top of it. So like when you have a mobile phone, you only have gyroscope. Whenever you have your mobile phone, you only have like the gyroscope and accelerometer to really determine where your position are.
Yep.
So you kind of guesstimate where your head is based on where you're moving and looking. And now actually, I've seen this now, which is very clever. People using the camera on the newer phones to be able to actually test or use plane detection, so AR, to be able to do position tracking as well. So
Cool.
It actually does give you 6 degrees of freedom.
Cool.
Compared to 3.
Cool. All right, guys, so it's 7 o'clock, so thank you for tuning in. We're going to start. My name is Lou Puschelberg, and I'm here with Jason Campbell.
Hello.
So if you're just tuning in, you haven't missed anything. Jason and I were just kind of kicking things off, taking some questions. If you do have questions, feel free to just throw them in the comments, and we're going to answer those throughout the workshop. We have another one of our colleagues here with us named Liz Haluwage, and Liz is working the back end, so fielding all of your questions and kind of passing them throughout the workshop over to us. So like I said, my name is Lou. I'm one of the co-founders of Academy VR, and this is the third VR startup that I've worked on. Our personal motto for Academy VR is really that your success in VR is our success, and we work with all of our students, all of our course participants, one-on-one to really help them be successful, either if that's building their own app or building an app for their business, or just getting basically the right resources to help make them successful. So we work with everything from developers, designers, content creators, entrepreneurs, all diving into VR. And really the goal of Academy VR is to have one of our students create the next global virtual reality application or business and share that with millions of customers and people around the world. So Just to give you guys some perspective, today is November 16th. We have a course beginning the 28th. Between today and the 28th, there's going to be about 12,000 new headsets that are sold. So we're really excited about virtual reality. We hope in today's intro workshop to give you guys a bit of a taste of what you need to know and the skills that you need to build apps for a headset like the HTC Vive. And then after that, we're going to be diving into AR kit. So if this is for your own startup or joining a new company or a startup as a VR creator, or if this is an application for your business internally, or if you want to move into consultancy or become a freelancer or become a developer, six-figure salary developer working in VR, this is something which we hope to enable you to do. So speaking of developers, some professional working in virtual reality and augmented reality, Jason Campbell is going to be leading our technical demonstration here tonight. He's been working on a whole range of different applications for pretty much all the major headsets for companies big and small. So it's my honor to kind of have him co-present with me tonight. He's also one of our instructors at Academy of VR. I know I learn a lot from him every single time we talk or when we do one of these presentations. So I know you guys will as well. If you need or want to reach me at any point during the presentation, feel free to shoot me an email. My email is at lou@academyofvr.com. So if you have questions about the courses, about pricing, about the technology, about Unity, about if this is right for your business, anything at all, just feel free to shoot me an email and we'll get back to you right away. So you might be wondering, what is Academy of VR? What do we do? So Academy of VR teaches corporate courses and corporate training. We help people learn how to make virtual reality and augmented reality apps. What sets us apart from a lot of other online courses out there is that we really, like I said, invest in our students' success. So whether you're a working professional or a business, we work one-on-one with everyone to help them truly create best-in-class virtual reality apps. So all of our instructors are professionals working in the industry, and those people spend time with you individually because we know that the solution, what you're trying to do, is usually unique to kind of some of your ideas or the business that you're in. So you might be wondering, what have we done so far? So Academy of VR to date has taught over 1,000 students. So last year we taught 500 students in offline local workshops, and this year we've taught another 500 students. I'm going to be going into what some of these people are doing today later in the presentation. So now for some technical stuff. We teach all of our classes in a platform called Unity. So if you're not familiar, Unity is really the market leader and the industry standard for creating virtual reality apps. It's free. It works on a Windows computer or a Mac. You don't need an amazing computer to start with Unity. Really, anyone can get started with Unity. Just type it into Google, download it today, and you can start creating virtual reality apps tonight or tomorrow. So we're going to be teaching you how to use the basics of how to use Unity, how to get it set up for the HTC Vive and for ARKit, and then we hope that you guys will go on to use Unity to create virtual reality or augmented reality apps after tonight's workshop. As I was mentioning, you can use Unity for Google Cardboard, Google Daydream, Samsung Gear VR, the Oculus Rift, the PlayStation VR, the HTC Vive, Microsoft HoloLens, Apple's AR kit, which is what we're going to be demoing tonight, Google's AR Core, all these different platforms for immersive technology, they all use Unity. So that's what we're teaching our courses. We really recommend you to get started with Unity today, even if you don't have one of the headsets. An alternate to Unity, if you're creating virtual reality or augmented reality apps, is Unreal. Also a really good platform and tool, but most of our courses are focused on Unity, so we're going to keep the focus on Unity tonight. So to give you guys a bit more info about our courses, they run part-time for 10 weeks. They meet 3 hours weekly, plus an additional 1 hour each week for one-on-one help on your own personal project or idea, or if you're working in the course on behalf of a business on some business application that you're building. Regularly, the 10-week course is priced at $2,500, but for everyone tuning in to tonight's workshop, there's going to be a special discount. So just remind me at the end, and I'll explain what that is. So everyone's probably wondering who's taking our courses. If you guys have been to New York City, you've probably been through LaGuardia Airport. We actually have one of our students is currently using virtual reality to help design the new airport in New York City, and also using VR to help train airport staff before this terminal is even built. So airport designers for the airport in New York. We've worked with filmmakers, we've worked with chemical engineers, we've worked with web developers, IT professionals, educators, architects, designers, whole bunch of different people in different fields. If you don't fit any of these categories, that's okay. There's lots of different fields where virtual reality is applicable. We'd love to have you enroll and to work with you. So this is a good time for me to just stop and say, if this is something that you are interested in and you want to start creating virtual reality applications today, and you like the idea of working with professional instructors and kind of getting right to the point, we would say go for it. There's lots of resources online, or if you want to work with us, you can just check out our website. We have all the info on the courses there. So we'd love to work with you guys. There's the URL. Now I want to jump into today's outline. So I'm going to start by sharing our story, then share some insight what we learned working on and helping start 3VR companies. Jason's then going to dive into creating an app for the Vive, so then it's going to get a little technical. Jason is going to give you guys an introduction to Unity and show you the basic process for how an app is made for a headset like the HTC Vive or the Oculus. Then we're going to switch over to augmented reality, which again is something that you'd use on like an iPhone, an iPad, or any type of cell phone really, so like Snapchat or Pokemon Go. He's going to show you how you create an augmented reality app in Unity, give you guys the steps. And then finally, we'll end tonight's workshop with some next steps, resources, and questions from you guys to make sure we're answering everything you want to know. So you're going to learn tonight how augmented reality and virtual reality apps are made in Unity. We're going to share some insights, and then we're going to share some resources to help you get started. Okay, so I want to start just with kind of my story of working on 3 VR companies, how we got to where we are today. So it all started a couple years ago with the Oculus DK1 Kickstarter, which I found online. This was in 2013. And Jason had one of the original Oculuses. I had an Oculus DK2. And after trying my first virtual reality experience, which was called Surge, I was just instantly in wonder about the possibilities of this new technology, both for consumers and for businesses. So it was my goal to kind of be a sponge and really understand where the kind of cutting edge of the industry was. So I booked a trip to travel to the biggest VR hubs across the West Coast, being Vancouver, Seattle, San Francisco, and LA, stopping at places like Stanford, where they've been doing VR research for over 20 years. So this is Stanford's virtual human interaction lab. The cool thing about this lab is they used to have this proprietary headset, which is about $10,000. They've now replaced it by a $400, $300 Oculus Rift. So this is me in the lab. Also visited places like USC. USC is being funded by a big military grant and is actually the birthplace of Oculus and of commercial virtual reality today. So this is a famous researcher named Mark Bolus. We were in the USC lab, and then we also interviewed a bunch of companies and kind of thought leaders on our curriculum and on the current state of VR. So people from Valve, Oculus, Google, Tiltbrush, all basically through a startup which I was working for at the time called Converge. So to give you guys a bit of perspective, we had an interview with Google and with the founders of Tiltbrush in Converge. This was a couple of years ago. It was a seminar just like this online, and just to show you kind of how early it was, we had a total of 58 users online. So there I am, and this is a workshop, VR workshop taught basically at Google. So throughout this process, Jason and I had been kind of talking about what the next big platform was, and we're both really big believers in immersive technology, so in virtual reality and augmented reality, and had this idea for academyofvr.com, and really the idea came out of the fact that it's still really difficult to learn to create virtual reality apps and stay on the edge of kind of new knowledge coming from the industry, and there's no platform to connect people with with professional instructors in a personal way to help them learn how to create their own VR ideas and apps. So we set on our mission to start teaching courses, and that's exactly what we did. So this is one of our instructors, Dan, another one of our instructors, Amanda, teaching some of our local courses. So we taught about those, or we talked about those 1,000 students that we taught. These are just some of them. Here's Jason in the Microsoft store. Here I am. Here's Jason with another one of our students. So these are all the students that we taught across the country last year, and it's really exciting for us to be able to work with some of these people in our online course, because there's so many smart people, lots of bright ideas, and it just is always exciting to see what people are creating either for themselves or for their businesses. So now I want to talk about some insights, and mainly just the biggest insight which we've gleaned from working in VR for the past couple of years. And that's this distinction between enterprise or business applications versus consumer applications. And actually where we see a lot of opportunities in VR today are through business applications. So to give you an example, our peers here in Vancouver, a company named Also VR, and they make a surgical training application and then sell that to institutions. Another company here in Vancouver named Archiact, they also make a bunch of virtual reality business solutions for various clients. Similarly, LNG Studios out of Vancouver and San Francisco makes virtual reality business applications specifically for architects. So a lot of VR business opportunities, everything from architecture to real estate, education, marketing, medical, all these different fields. And as you guys can see, my list just keeps growing and growing and growing. I'm running out of bullet points here. So lots of opportunities in different fields. We've worked with some people who have really smart ideas coming from their fields, and it's an exciting place to be in. And this isn't really touching on things like design, so UI UX design and what that means in VR and solving those challenges. So that wraps up my intro. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jason, and Jason is going to dive into Unity and just give you guys kind of an overview of what Unity is and how you use Unity to create apps for the Vive and for the for an iPad. So Jason, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Lou. That was fun. Let me go grab my mouse right here. So as Lou said, I'm a developer. I've been working for a long time in the VR space, but I'm going to show you today kind of how to make your own application pretty quickly and how simply you can get working in VR and start building out from there and kind of broaden your horizons. So I'm going to just open up Unity, pop this down, pop this down, pop this down. And I'm using 2017.1. It just happens to be what we have on this computer. But you can also use 2017.2, 5.6. Any version you really have is available is good. There are some changes, especially in 2017.2. They introduced a lot of new stuff. And 2017.3, when you start using the Windows headsets, is what actually you really need. So I'm going to keep going in here, and I actually have a pre-built demo, but that's just because there's a lot of downloading to do, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't sitting here and explaining things while I downloaded for about 15 minutes. So when you log into Unity for the first time, this is what you'll see. So on my screen, you can see right here, there's these bunch of windows here, and it looks kind of scary, but I promise you, once you get more comfortable with this, things will really start coming into place, and you won't be as nervous about what's going on inside these screens. Like this screen down here, for example, this project window, you can see I can move these windows around. This is just a representation of the file structure we have on our computer. So if I right-click on Assets and go Show and Explore, you'll see in here, it's really just a computer. It's just a bunch of folders that allow me to be able to access, and you'll see all of these folders and files that show up here are actually just correspond directly to what is in my folders here. So all these folders correspond here, and if I made any changes, like if I created a new folder, let's just call it new folder, it just shows up inside my folder scripts, inside of my folder, my asset folder. Now that makes this window hopefully a little bit more recognizable. It's just a file structure window. And now the nice thing about this is that you'll see that there's three windows up here. And these three windows are the ones that you'll do all your major work in. So you have your hierarchy up here. This is like where you keep all the objects in your scene. Now your scene view here, this is a representation of the objects that you see on the left in your hierarchy. And on the far right here, you see the inspector, and the inspector gives you details about the objects that you select. So if I select an object in my hierarchy, you'll see it shows which one, the representation of the object I'm going to use. And on the far right, it shows a bunch of information about that object. So this is a light. You can see I can move this light around by grabbing and moving any of these dots around here. I can rotate it. You can see it's affecting my skybox. I can scale it. Scaling doesn't really do anything on a light. But let's maybe create a different object. So if I right click in my hierarchy, or if I go to game object and create 3D object cube, you'll see a 3D object just pop out here. And this cube is basically just a representation of what it is. Because really what's actually happening is this is me able to look around the scene, set up my world, add a few cubes. Maybe let's add a sphere to it, 3D object and a sphere. Place these things around. And then when I go to game mode, this is when I'll really see what the player is going to see when they're playing. Now, by default, this is laid out and designed for working with the regular computer, but Unity's also made it very easy for us to make this build out to virtual reality. So to do that, I just have to go into Edit, Project Settings, Player, and now this is 2017.1. Unity is upgrading constantly with VR to try and keep in the game and make sure everything's on pace. And you'll see in this right now, if you're using 2017.2 or greater, you'll see another little section note here that says XR settings. And you just want to select that, and then you'll see the same toggle that I have here, which is virtual reality supported. And so if I tick that virtual reality supported, you'll see it, for me it's adding OpenVR, but I could also add the Oculus, which is Oculus Rift, or if you have another headset, you can change the way that there's split stereo. Also, if you want to develop for like Gear VR or Daydream or Cardboard, you'll see up here I have this Android symbol, and if I go to that, I have the same idea, virtual reality supported. I can hit the little plus symbol, and you will see there's a ton of different options here, including Cardboard, Daydream, Oculus, and more. But really, we're going to focus on using the PC, Mac, and Linux standalone because that's what I'm testing today. But later, when we go over the AR kit, I'll give you a little bit more of an understanding on how the other build options work. So I'm going to just stick with my virtual reality supported, just tick that box, select OpenVR, and now what I have in the scene, it'll work in VR. So if I switch over to game mode, you'll see it's just the main camera. But when I press this play button, this is where the testing comes in. You can test while you're running. If I press play, you'll see now when I pick my camera up, I have the ability to look around. So right now, this is actually fully, this is a very full-on experience. If I put this on, I can see those objects in 3D, like a cube and a sphere, and I can still look around the scene and look at everything else inside of my scene. But there's not really much interaction at this point. So I can't actually grab anything or do any interactions. And we're gonna build into that slightly in a second. But I want to go a little bit more over these game objects. So on the left here, when I select this cube, you can see it selects these objects. And on the right here, it gives me more details about those objects. So if I select this cube, you can see I can move this around. You're also going to see as I move these around, these values change in the right here. So the X, Y, and Z, this is what's called a vector 3. The X component, just like a graph, the X component will give me some flat level value going in one direction. The Y is the up and down. And then I can move also, because it's 3 dimensions, along the Z axis as well. So you see those values change. So it may look a little bit scary to have 3D objects in your world, but really they're all just pieces built up. So this directional light is the same base object as the sphere. It just has different components on it to build it up and make something else. So I'm going to actually make this a more an experience we can actually play around with, something like Job Simulator. If you've ever seen Job Simulator before, it's a game where you can like pick up objects, throw them around, mix them together, do some other things. We're going to give the ability to kind of pick up objects just to start, give us a very basic understanding of how that works. So to do that, we're going to use something that was provided to us. Now it's really nice because everybody wants you to use their devices, their medium. So like the Vive, Valve has made SDKs to be able to use these things properly. As well as Oculus, they have their own SDKs to be able to use it. Unity is doing a really nice job of actually making that even easier by abstracting out the differences between the SDKs. So when I press play here, and I've set up that virtual reality checkbox, if I were to plug in an Oculus Rift, it would actually work as well. It would be playing around in VR. So, but just to make my life easier for now, I want to show you another little feature that is available to us if you just want to focus on one or more, or one in particular. I'm going to use the Steam VR, so I'm actually going to disable my camera just by selecting it and then disabling in the top right here. And you'll see that my camera no longer has a representation of the scene. So before, you can see my camera was selected here, and when I disable it, it's no longer showing up, just its position is showing up. So I'm going to build right now using a prefab, what's called a prefab, from an SDK. And that SDK I just downloaded online. So one of the wonderful things about Unity is this asset store. This comes with all developers creating different sorts of things. Lots of modelers and artists will create models and sell them or give them away for free on the asset store. You'll see if I can just select 3D models. Tons of models will pop up here. These are all things I can buy or use in my applications or games or whatever I'm going to make. But in my case, I'm just going to look for what's called Steam VR. So this is all I downloaded. It's the Steam VR plugin. And this plugin is going to enable me to do this quite quickly to show you what the controllers look like and how I can interact with them. It's actually even easier now in Unity, but we just want to show you the SDKs and what's available as well. So if I go back to my scene, here's my scene view here. If I select Steam VR, you'll see there's a bunch of options under here. So this is the actual package I downloaded. And in here's prefab. So when I open that up, I can drag in what's called a camera rig. And this camera rig, I'll place it somewhere in the environment. You'll see it comes with a camera rig, and then in the hierarchy, so this is similar to a folder structure, because this camera rig has other components to it as well. So you'll see that as I select these down, you're going to see a bunch of different options of things that are also included in this camera rig. And the nice thing about a hierarchy is that if I move the bottom object, all the objects move with it. And that's an important thing to note when you start playing around in VR a bit. So the reason that I want to show you this is if I press play now, it's still tracking my head. That's totally great, but it is also giving me the nice advantage of introducing the controllers. So I can actually use these controllers, and about this time I should probably put on my headset. Whoop, there we are. So I have these controllers now, which are having a little bit of trouble tracking, but just my right hand. So you can see that when I pull on the trigger, it's showing some trigger interactions, and I can move my hand along the D-pad. These are all provided to me. I haven't done any real work for this yet. This is all thanks to the Steam VR. It's giving us that kind of interaction, our ability to get started and just play around in VR and develop our own stuff. So you'll notice one thing here is that on my hierarchy of objects, I have my controller left and controller right. And these things are enabling us to basically track the position of our objects, but in a virtual space. So if I press play, and I'm actually going to drag my game scene out here so we have a different window version. So you can see in our virtual scene here, if I select my left hand, you can see the position of it moving around. And this makes it really easy to be able to use that hand when you're actually wanting to make some code or some kind of reaction to some objects. So I'm just going to keep my scene the way it is, but now I'm going to give us some kind of interaction to be able to pick up objects with those hands we have. And I'm going to use a lot of those components will be straight from Unity, not actually my own creation. There's only one. I'm going to add a script to each hand that we teach in the class how to make. It's fairly straightforward. I'm going to give you access to see it and kind of play around, give you the idea of what it is and what code is in Unity, what it means to code in Unity. So to do that, I'm going to start by adding to my left controller something that's called a collider. So if you're not familiar with a collider, it's basically just a shape that enables it to interact with other objects, giving it either a physics, like a hard shell, or a trigger so that when things enter it, it triggers some kind of function or something on it. So in my case, I'm going to set it to a trigger. So I'll tick is trigger here. And then I'm going to add to this a rigid body. So a rigid body is kind of a way to interact with physics. So what this will do, the nice thing about the rigid body is the first time that I started programming, I was nervous about writing physics. I wasn't even sure how to approach that. Well, Unity handles all that in this case. So by using a rigid body, we can interact with physics, based on our collider shapes, will bounce off each other or, fall with gravity. There's a bunch of different options there. We're actually going to use our rigid body just to make calculations, so whenever we enter other objects, we have some reaction. So I'm just going to untick use gravity and check is kinematic. And then the last thing I'm going to add is that script that we kind of teach in class, and we'll go over just a slight, get to see how simple that actual code is. I'm going to use this, VR input Vive, and I'm just going to change my hand from left eye, which is kind of an odd hand, to left hand in this case. So this gives me the collider, the rigid body, and my script to be able to handle this. So I'm just going to pause this and slide these back, and I'm going to do this one more time on my right hand so I can use both hands. So again, it's a collider, and if these terms seem a little bit strange and they're coming on fast, I promise you they're very simple. There's all kind of stuff that you'll learn through taking either taking the courses or through there's a bunch of free tutorials that we'll send out in the end that Unity provides. They'll help you get in the understanding of how the UI works and how each one of the components can help you develop whatever it is you want to make. So again, I'm going to do my sphere collider. So this component, I'm just going to say is a trigger, add onto that a rigid body, and then that rigid body, I'm just going to say uncheck is gravity, because we'll see a little later what that means, and when I check is kinematic, it'll work. It'll maintain its position. I'm going to add one last piece, and that's VR input Vive. And presto, I have that. I'm just going to change this to right hand. And now when I press play, there's one last thing I need to do on this cube to make it an interactable cube, a cube I can actually interact with. I'm just going to add a VR interactable object, pickup object. There we go. And like that, if I press play, you'll see there's my cube. If I made my huge hands, but I can pick up this object and play around with it by grabbing my triggers and just moving it around. And I'm going to put this here for now because I want to show you what happens when I just add that rigid body. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to add a new game object, just an object that the world can fall onto. So I'll create a cube and I'm going to scale this out. So I can use these tools up here to scale it out. And then the transform to move it down. Unity is actually introducing a new tool that does all three of these at once, which is kind of cool. I'm going to move this down a little bit further. And there we are. And the other thing I'm going to do is my hands are enormous. The range, I don't know if you saw that, I could reach that object. So I'm going to change this collider from about a radius of a half a meter to a radius of about 10 centimeters. That makes the most sense. 0.1 there. And now if I press play, you'll see I'm back in VR. And if I grab this object, I can hold it. Oh, I didn't add the rigid body to it. But here it is. It's moving. I can now use both my hands. I added the first part, which was the ground, but I never added the physics to it. So just to make the physics, I click on my cube. And like I did before, I'm just going to add that rigid body so you can see how straightforward it is. And I'm just going to leave all these things checked. So what this will do is it's going to start using gravity and it'll be able to bounce and interact with other objects. If I press play now, I'll put it over here. I can now pick up this object, and when I drop it, it'll actually interact with the world. Ow, I just punched the desk. Interact with the world in a way that is predictable. And I can just drop it off the edge, and it'll fall forever. So really simply, I've kind of created a way to interact with the world. That's kind of the very basic form of what Job Simulator does, and what a lot of VR interactions are at the moment is picking up objects, moving them around, doing something along those lines. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a step further here, adding just one more set of code to be able to handle this. And I made kind of a semi-archery game just before this. Let's see if I can grab it. Pardon me. Here it is. I'm not going to save this one. If I press play here, you'll see I'm in some area. I did not make this art. I'm a pretty horrible artist, actually. But I did... but this is a fantastic piece of art that I just downloaded from the asset store, and you're welcome to find your. We'll send you a link, I think, with which the asset is at the end of the lecture or end of the webinar. So here we go. I've made this kind of simple, straightforward bow game. Added one more line of code, and I can. Oh, this is like the best I've ever done. I think I hit an apple almost every time. Oh, come on! Oh, I ruined it by saying that. Okay, well I got a couple of them, so that's not too bad. And farewell. So like that, I've kind of just used 2 scripts to make my last one, but I want to show you a little bit of the code too. So if you take a look, I'm just going to open up my scripts here. These are basically what makes me interact with the world. If I open up these VR input Vive, this is just that hand script. I'm going to show you how simple or small the actual code is to pick up those objects and drop them. So this is the entirety. It's just about 1 page of code to be able to handle picking up, dropping, and highlighting all those objects that we saw whenever we reach in and grab them. And so this is using a very simple form, but it'll handle basically any kind of interaction later that you want. And beyond that, it's just introducing your own interactions and things. So I'm going to pop back over here. And that's it for the Vive. I'm gonna please ask me any kind of technical questions, any questions you have in general about the industry. I'm gonna be here all night, and I'll answer kind of anything that you have. So I'm gonna move on over to ARKit right now. I have to make some notes about ARKit to start, so I'm gonna take this thing off. Whoop, there we go. I probably have VR head right now. So I'm gonna open up Unity here, and now, this is a Windows machine. It's a bit difficult to do this, but you can technically, okay, there's a plugin designed to be able to build to iPhone and iPad devices, but really your safest bet to be able to build to iPad and iPhone is to use MacBook. So most of your development has to be on MacBook because it has to go through Xcode. Xcode is, it's free. But it's Apple's kind of development environment for building to iPhone stuff, and it's Xcode 9 or greater you need, and you also need an iOS that is 11 or greater, and you need a phone that's a 6S Plus or better. So this is for ARKit. There's also AR Core, which is for Android devices, and Unity has that built in by default right now in their latest versions, so it'll help you build to AR Core a lot more simply. There's also Vuforia, which is a little bit different. So AR Core and ARKit are both what are called plane detection. So they use plane detection to figure out where they are in space. And we talked a bit earlier about 6 degrees of freedom and 3 degrees of freedom. Barely had time to explain it, but like 6 degrees of freedom includes position in space, not just rotation. And so when we are saying 6 degrees of freedom, the plane detection allows this iPad or phone to be able to move and realize where it is relative to the world. So you can actually pan in and zoom, and I'll demonstrate this at the end. So we have right here the scene. This is actually, I did basically nothing here. I added a few different little pieces. I just wanted to show you that how simple it is also to make an AR application and get started with that. So all I did really was from the asset store, I downloaded Unity's ARKit. So if I look up Unity, or I can actually just look up ARKit, you'll see in the asset store that they're right here, there's this Unity ARKit plugin. And this really helps because all it does is it downloads this asset plugin here, and then I just open this Unity ARKit scene to make a few changes just to show you kind of the base of where we are. And what it does is it gives me the ability to actually detect, get the pass-through camera all set up, and then interface with the ARKit library so that I can actually interact and say things. And it's all that I wrote in here to be able to do what I'm about to do is in this one set of code in this object spawning script. So I didn't go into what Unity uses, but Unity uses C#. C# is a very common language. It's used in a lot of Microsoft applications, but it's also a very common language in general used. And so we teach C# in the class, and this right here is the entirety of what is helping run what I added to this project essentially to be able to interact with. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second. And you'll see up here this wonderful little Unity engine.xr. This is a new feature to Unity that is really helping our development for both AR and VR. So that's C#. If you are not familiar with C#, coding is just like writing books. Don't worry, it seems complicated, but once you start sitting down and writing, it's really like writing recipes. It's very straightforward, and it's a very nice thing and a very soothing thing to do after time. I've learned to love coding. So I'm going to show you a little piece of this. I can't build from here, so I can't press play and run it because it's not designed to run from here. Again, I have to work on my Mac when I'm working on AR. But in this case, I'll just show you is I'm going to screen share what this program does on an iPad. And so I'm just going to run it up here on Reflector. All right.
Those people that don't know, do you want to explain to them what ARKit is?
Sure. Okay, good point, Lou. So AR Kit, for those that don't know, is basically build out to help people build AR for iPads and for iPhones. So AR is what's called augmented reality. So you can see my world here. I've now introduced you to the world of what I'm looking at. AR is augmented reality. It's like bringing the virtual world into reality, whereas virtual reality is taking away the real world and giving us the virtual world. So there's a somewhere in between, which is mixed reality, and I'll get a little bit into that later in the questions. But right now, you can see what it's doing. This is the program that I was just showing you. You see the yellow dots trying to detect the space, and that blue area is the plane it's detecting. So it's starting to detect this table as a space. And if I move around here, you can see Liz up here. Liz is answering all your questions or getting us ready and getting the questions for us. You can kind of see yourselves in the infinite reality. So what I can do here is just add into this, tap on these cards right here, and you can see the 6 degrees of freedom as I move away and they become farther out of my range, and I can zoom right into them and get up close. I can even come in from the side, and they look to be resting almost perfectly on the table. And that's the AR at work here. The AR is actually doing all the work here. I really am just spawning those objects. That's my lunch, dinner. Super fascinating. There's the lighthouses. Here's Lou. So I can just place these objects around the space. I can place them on the ground if I want to. It's detecting the ground now. And you can see that I have now all these basically trading cards on the table here. Whereas before, in the old days when I was writing AR code, we would just have to deal with mostly just the gyroscope to figure out what you were looking at. Now you can actually detect where you are in space for a good point. And it saves you a lot of work and makes your life a lot easier. So you have a lot of fun building AR Kit. I really hope that you guys get a chance today and just spark some interest and you start going out there and learning to make your own applications. Yeah, we can help you with that, but if you want to just try it on your own, which is I also do suggest, Lou's going to send you all the Unity tutorials and a bunch of other assets and tutorials we have about UX and a bunch of other little pieces that'll really help you get going and really introduce you to the world, and you can start creating your own applications with it. And I really hope to play some of yours someday. So here's Lou. Without further ado, he's going to give you some more information about the actual industry and kind of like what's out there and what there is to offer.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Jay. So hopefully you guys learned some information on Unity, on the HTC Vive, and on AR Kit from Jason. Like I mentioned, he's worked for a range of companies, big and small. He's a very professional instructor and developer. I'm always learning a lot from him, and he's a great teacher, so great at teaching many of our students, many of the businesses that we work with and working professionals how to get started in Unity, how to start creating apps for the Vive or for ARKit or for Google Cardboard, pretty much any virtual reality platform that you want to work on. Or sometimes if you even don't have a headset, you just want to start in Unity. So that's obviously just the tip of the iceberg. We go into how to get set up for virtual reality or augmented reality in the course in more detail. If you're new to coding, we walk through some of the basic frameworks for learning C#. So we help you learn C#, learn coding, learn Unity, all of that. We really go into depth in the course. So now I want to just share some, like Jason said, some kind of industry insights so you guys know what's out there. Before I do, I'll just share a quick snapshot. Everything really falls under Unity. So Unity is the kind of the industry standards, the market-leading platform for creating virtual reality apps. So if you guys want to get started today, this is really what you should use, and that's why we're teaching it in the courses. So I have all the headsets here to show you that everything works with Unity, everything from Google Cardboard to Oculus to the Vive. And then also iPhones, Androids, or something like Microsoft HoloLens, augmented reality. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into some industry info, so you guys know kind of what the starting point is. So if you're looking to switch up your career, start something new, something creative, virtual reality job postings were up over 800% last year. So we work with a lot of virtual reality developers, designers, content creators, storytellers. These are really good positions to have as both startups, small companies, and big companies dive into virtual reality and are looking to hire people with these skills. And a lot of the skills are in Unity. We're really just, at the kind of the pioneering phase as the technology starts its growth. So if you guys remember those like massive cell phones from the 80s and 90s that you could like smash a window with, that's where we're at in virtual reality's evolution. So we're at the beginning, and this is where it starts. We're nowhere near the iPhone or the touchscreen. So there's kind of an exciting trajectory for this technology, which we hope you guys will be a part of. Most major companies, everything from Apple, Facebook, Disney, Microsoft, are hiring virtual reality, like I said, designers, developers, consultants, storytellers, and are kind of investing in these technologies. So with that being said, let's look at some kind of sales figures and numbers. So what's the market size? So ground zero. So this is the baseline. This is where you guys start. 15 million mobile virtual reality headsets. So this is Google Cardboard, Samsung Gear VR, Google Daydream. They all have app stores. So you can create an app in Unity at home and then publish it on the App Store to 15 million people across the world who are using these headsets. And the exciting thing about mobile virtual reality is it's growing so quickly, and more headsets literally are getting sold every single day during this webinar. So, your opportunity grows, our opportunity grows, the whole kind of opportunity of the ecosystem is on the upwards trajectory. Show you guys the other side of the fence. PC and console-based VR, that's VR that you need a computer to power, like the Vive, like the Oculus, or like PlayStation VR. There's about 2 million headsets sold to date. VR is only a couple of years old, so that's really good trajectory. And Vives are selling about 1,000 units a day. So we do have our course starting on November 28th. Today is the 16th. So that's about 12 days. So 12,000 new Vives, new customers, new people to download and share what you create with between now and the start of our course. So hope you guys can tell how excited I am about this. And that's just because the field is growing. There's always new announcements and new things happening every day in VR. If you look at augmented reality, there's over 300 million iPhones that can now run Apple's AR kit, and equally goes for Android phones. So, immersive technology, it's coming down the pipe, and there's a window to kind of start creating AR, VR apps today, truly. There's over 1,800 companies working in the VR and AR space, so this is just a snapshot of some of them. We'll send out this resource, the full list, at the end of the presentation today. So expect some emails from us with the slides, with the video recording, with some more info on our courses and all the links that we've talked about that Jason mentioned. You'll get an email after the course ends. So just some companies that we work with as a part of Academy of VR. These are some of them. Many of them are hiring. Many of them are, again, pushing VR. So today we've really focused on Unity. That's in our eyes the industry standard and the market leading platform. So if you're sitting at home thinking, how do I start in virtual reality? Learn Unity. That's what we're teaching in our courses. That's the best creation tool. That's what a lot of companies are using in the industry. So if you're trying to transition into a career in VR, something new, or if your company wants to build an application internally, or if you're just wanting to learn a new skill, learn virtual reality, start with Unity. They have an awesome set of free tutorials, which again, we'll send out at the end of the lecture. Or if you like, working kind of personally with someone and you like what you've heard today, we're offering our Unity course. So on November 28th, I'm going to share some info on the course now. It's beginning. It's 10 weeks. It's all done online. So you guys can sign up for that at academyofvr.com/course. Again, there's a bunch of free tutorials, which I'll send out from Unity. Here's just some of them where we recommend you start. Unity even has a virtual reality section. But if you guys do like what you've heard and you prefer to work with a professional instructor, some of the advantages of the course are that we can make sure that you're learning efficiently from beginner through to intermediate to advanced, that you're working hands-on, one-on-one with someone, and that you have that certification of the skills that you've acquired in virtual reality at the end of the course. So in our courses, we really focus on helping you learn Unity for creating virtual reality apps and getting your hands dirty and doing that by creating your own idea. Focus on helping you learn C# programming. It's 3 hours a week, plus that 1 hour every week for one-on-one consultation, where we basically become your personal VR coach and mentor. So we have 2 streams. One is for newbies, and the other is for people with programming experience. And I just want to restate that there's no previous experience required for the course. So we will have people coming in, enrolling, who have never touched Unity before, no programming experience. It's designed to be a beginner level course, and it's compatible Mac or Windows, so whatever computer you have. You don't need to go out and buy a new computer for virtual reality or for Unity. We can send you a Google Cardboard. You can get started today with whatever technology you have. The nice thing about Unity, it is that one-size-fits-all solution. That's why we're teaching it. So if you want to, get started with your iPhone, or if you want to get started with Google Cardboard, you can. Or if you have a Vive, have an Oculus, and you want to start creating virtual reality apps for those platforms, we can work with any platform that you have access to. So we do keep our class sizes small because Jason and some of our other instructors do work very personally with a lot of our students, and those spots will fill up quite quickly. So if you are interested in the November 28th course, there's only 5 spots available. We talked about that pricing at the beginning of the workshop today, so we're going to reduce the price by $500 for everyone tuning in tonight. Quick recap, so it's 10 weeks. You're saving $500, and that's if you register before November 23rd, which is next week. It's 1 week from today, so it's going to be next Thursday. So again, we welcome you to start learning Unity, dive into virtual reality. But if you like what you've heard today, you like kind of the idea of working personally with someone, then we'd love to have you on board. We also have financing plans. So when this is a big number, we can break it up into 6 or 12-month payments if that helps. So again, recapping, save $500 before November 23rd. We know who has registered tonight for the workshop, so we know then we'll automatically apply that discount for you. And all you have to do to register is just go to our site and place your $75 deposit. So just want to end by saying that it is an exciting opportunity, and there's lots of opportunity to become a virtual reality designer, developer, storyteller, consultant, entrepreneur, whatever you have in mind. We would love to kind of help you achieve those opportunities and some of those dreams of yours. So shoot me an email at lou@academyvr.com. Let me know what you're thinking. If you want to talk about the course, if you want to talk about the industry, technology, the price, if this is right for your business, feel free to reach out anytime with questions. I'd love to share some advice and what we know about virtual reality with you anytime. So just feel free to email me. If this is something you're thinking about, I would encourage you, go for it. We're Canadian. Someone I saw in the chat asked earlier where we're from. We're from Vancouver, BC, so on the West Coast in Canada. It's a big virtual reality kind of center and hub here. And because we're Canadian, we have to share kind of a famous hockey quote, and that's that you're going to miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So virtual reality is happening now. It's growing. Augmented reality is coming down the pipe. So if this is something you would want to do, really encourage you guys who are tuning into the stream tonight, go for it. Dive into the industry. It's exciting. There's lots happening. Now is the time. So we would love to work with you guys. If you choose to enroll, we welcome you with open arms. But if not, we welcome you regardless to the community. And it's been a pleasure kind of sharing some of our knowledge with you tonight. Thanks very much for your time and for tuning in. That's going to wrap up the formal part of our presentation. But what Jason and I are going to do is we're going to hang around and just answer any questions you have now. So we have Liz working in the back end of the chat. So feel free to put your questions into the chat. Literally anything about virtual reality or augmented reality. We'd love to hear your questions. We'll just go through them in order and make sure that we get everything answered. So thank you guys, and yeah, let's start answering some questions. So I'm just gonna move us up full screen here.
Okay. You warped us.
Oh.
Really funny.
Okay, put us there. We go. Okay, so what's our first question, Jay?
I'll pull it over. Wait, let me see. My eyes aren't great. All right. So Peter McRoy asked, is Unreal Engine 4 as flexible as Unity for platforms? Curious what sort of poly limits are involved. Two-part question. I'll answer the first. Unreal Engine is definitely as flexible as Unity in terms of what they can build to. I personally find Unreal is usually like we always get this question usually in a webinar about whether to pick Unreal or whether to go with Unity, and there's pros and cons to both. I honestly, both engines are great. I find Unreal has prettier shaders out of the box. Those are the things that make like materials look good, but I find Unity way more extendable. I worked for years building museum software, and museum software, you need to be able to go all over the board to be able to build it with hardware and integrating hardware and different pieces of, multiple screens, that kind of stuff. Unity I've always found to be more like a better toolkit for that kind of thing. If you want to like expand or use it, it's also probably more common. One of the greatest things about Unity is it's more common among indie developers. So there's a huge community around Unity. If you have questions, someone else has asked it, and you can find.
But not just indies today. Like I see like so many even big companies using Unity. I'm like, wow, cool.
Well, the majority of the companies that I work for use Unity. There's a few that use Unreal, but the majority use Unity because a lot of people use it, so it's very easy to find developers. But also, it's perfectly suited for what you need to develop, especially in the enterprise industry.
Yeah.
I find it's a more approachable in a different way than Unreal for people with that mindset.
Yeah, like we've had students coming on behalf of their companies, architects or the airport designer or the car wash guy, all using Unity on behalf of their businesses, basically. The mining company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they're called either. The second part of that is curious what sort of poly limits are involved. So for those that don't know, he's referring to polygons, which are like part of a mesh to build out. Basically, it's for models. It's for 3D models.
3D models, yeah.
So that's kind of actually a lot bigger question than that, because you can't set a hard limit either way to what your poly count limit is, because there's a lot of other factors involved. If you just have flat images, you can get somewhere around like 100,000 on the just the gear. So the gear is like a higher end mobile.
Right.
But the reality is that you can get a lot more or less than that depending on what else you're running. What else you're running inside of your application. So if you're running in really heavy physics, obviously you're gonna have to cut back on your polygon, because there's a lot of work that's involved in the physics engine to be able to do that.
Yeah, so it's kind of case specific. So a lot of these questions, sometimes like there's no yes or no answer. It's kind of like, well, it depends on like the app you're creating that you have in mind. It's kind of like, we're gonna have to kind of work, or you're gonna have to work, or we're gonna have to work with you, or someone's gonna have to basically figure out like specifically how what platform and what the function of the app is.
Obviously, the platform makes a big difference too. There's lots of different different VR platforms, and some of them have way more power than the others. The other big thing about this, and the thing that I really say is with the answer to this question, is most engines, and including Unity and Unreal, they both have profilers. So profilers will let you view what is costing the most processing power in your game. So you can see what's costing, like maybe it's a script you wrote, maybe it's how many models you have. You want to use a profiler to be able to say, oh, this is the pain point in whatever I'm developing this application. So at that point, you could say, oh, I'll just
and those details, again, that's something which you could do your research, or if it's something you're working with us on, like in the course, we can kind of go into those details and make sure that you're set up and that we have you covered in terms of performance. So, question number 2.
By Dragon Century 5D Art Studio. Nice, love the name. Do you also teach MR like HoloLens development and XR like Magic Leap in addition to AR VR?
So maybe we should answer that in 2 parts. And maybe first we should talk about, he's talking about MR, so he's talking about Microsoft. So maybe you want to give a bit of an overview.
I'll break this out a little bit first. That's a good point. So there's kind of like 3 pillars to augmented reality and what XR is. So XR essentially is the X stand is a variable to say that it could be A, M, or V. So AR is augmented reality. That is to say, when we're bringing the virtual into the world. So this is HoloLens, AR Kit, AR Core, and that's where we're placing virtual objects in our world. Virtual reality is when we take out the entire world and we're just enter our virtual world. And mixed reality is along a spectrum of that. It lands somewhere in between.
Mixed reality is like these 2 together, basically, right?
Kind of like that. So mixed reality applies. It's what Microsoft has been using to term what they have created for their headsets, their mixed reality headsets. And HoloLens I would actually consider more typical AR, so augmented reality, whereas their headsets are more mixed reality because the advantage of what Microsoft's done for the mixed reality headsets is that they use what's called inside-out tracking instead of outside-in. So outside-in is when I'm using this Vive right here, there's two stations up here that are detecting or sending out infrared, and then I have infrared detectors on the headset that are basically being able to position it in space. That's what gives us that 6 degrees of freedom when we can move around in the space, not just have the rotation of our headset. What Microsoft has done is they've done inside-out tracking, so they have these two cameras on the front. They're doing similar to what this AR kit is doing, where they're doing plane detection, and they're detecting basically where the head is relative to that. So as I'm moving around my head in the scene, then it's figuring out from the world. So it doesn't need these base stations that the Vive and the Rift have.
So, I mean, that's pretty cool technology, because what that means for anyone who buys a headset from Microsoft is that, I mean, one, it can be wireless.
Hypothetically, I mean, they're really high density pixels, so it'd be hard to do that right now. But
Hypothetically, right.
hypothetically, yeah.
Yeah, so then maybe back to, you know, are we teaching MR development in our classes? We do have some students with the Microsoft headsets.
Yeah, absolutely. I teach lots of students with HoloLens. Worked in HoloLens as well myself. So HoloLens is again that AR headset. It's like a standalone computer on your head, which is fantastic. Really, I love it's if you haven't tried it yet, find someone who has a HoloLens and try it. It's a very expensive thing to buy yourself, so don't just buy it to try it. But find someone else who has one and just figure out and get a chance to look at it. It's a very different experience. And you talk a bit about Magic Leap. Magic Leap, I would also call AR. It falls along the same line as HoloLens. I have never myself touched the Magic Leap. It's all secret right now. So Magic Leap there's been
Magic Leap's secret.
super secret.
Magic Leap's $500 million of secret.
It's more than that in investment now. So like there's lots of investment in this company called Magic Leap, and they every now and then release these teaser videos about what they're doing.
You can if you don't know what Magic Leap is, just put it into Google. It's quite mysterious. Our guess is as good as yours, but just do a Google search for Magic Leap.
I actually do know a guy who tried one, and he said it's as good as they say it is. I don't know if I believe that, but he said it is.
You're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, he's just drinking the Kool-Aid. But anyway, it is like augmented reality. It uses a little bit different visual. It's not a screen. It's light field technology. It's slightly different.
So to wrap this question up,
Yes.
sorry.
No, you're right. We should probably finish this question.
We can work with you in the course for Microsoft mixed reality development. We can't help you with Magic Leap.
Yeah, we probably can't help you with Magic Leap. I'm sorry. I would love to be able to help you, and if you know somebody, get me a Magic. I mean, you can't. They're not like apparently they're a headset now, but originally it wasn't really a headset. Okay, third question by Chris G. Is there a scaling difference between Unity and real world? Are distances 1-to-1? Yes. So that's really up to you. Unity normally, I would say, and I suggest to every one of my students and most people I talk to, is to treat a Unity unit as 1 meter.
Yep.
So that's what most of the headsets will automatically do by default. You can scale objects to be bigger than, you can scale your headset to be much larger than that. The problem with doing that is that you'll end up with these outer issues when you start moving into physics. If you use physics in whatever you're making, it can become a problem. Otherwise, it's not really a big deal as long as you scale everything accordingly, like equally. But yeah, I treat one Unity unit as 1 meter, and that's how the physics engine will treat it, because some things that are larger have different reactions than smaller things when they
Which is
move.
good too if you're building, like if you're a business, you're building business applications, you want to build something to scale, either a building or like a mine or a construction site. That way, this distance in real life is equivalent to the exact same distance in the virtual world.
Yeah, the one thing you will notice is that when you do transitions between like AutoCAD or SketchUp or any of the architecture, the
3D kind of modeling tools.
Is that they do have like different units, so you might get a weird scale between the transfer, but you just have to figure out what the difference between the scale was and use that when you're doing the import settings for it.
Right.
But it's very straightforward. I promise you, it seems complicated, but it's literally changing one number to be able to scale it properly into what you're doing.
Cool.
So number 4 is a question from AppG22. Are there presets for VR setups for Android, etc.? I'm not sure what you mean by presets.
Like maybe he means like a integration with Unity.
Okay. Absolutely. I mean, like I showed you, when I tick in that VR box, actually I could play that game now on any VR or AR headset.
So for Android,
For Android, now what you may be asking is, or do you mean examples? Maybe examples of
like
AR
like
VR?
presets. Like, is he talking about like like the Google SDK like for Android?
Okay, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe that makes sense. So, like what we did for Steam in the beginning, we used the Steam SDK. Yeah, to be able to work for this. Yes, there are. There's as Lou was saying, there's the Google VR, GVR, which helps you with
Yep.
with
Android.
building Android. But really, you don't need that anymore. You can do it all through Unity.
Yeah.
Google even suggests doing it through Unity.
So
They
Unity
have
has
some
it
input
built
stuff.
in now where you don't even need to get external presets. You just do it all inside of Unity.
Yeah, I wouldn't have normally used the Steam SDK except for I just wanted to show you how quickly and what else is available. I would normally just do it from what I would call scratch, but really there's about 3 lines of code that allow me to track my hands and my head. And actually, there's 2 lines of code to track your hand, and 2 lines of code to track the other hand, and that's it.
That's awesome.
So, Peter.
Oh wait, you missed one.
Oh, I jumped ahead. Oops. And AppG, if you have a little bit more of an explanation for it, maybe if we didn't get that, then please ask again, and Liz will sort it out. Jay McNutt.
So Jerry McNutt is asking, can we use Mac OS X? So he's asking if you can use a Mac operating system with Unity for virtual reality. So yes, you can. So there's a small caveat there. So if you have a Mac, like for instance, Jason works on a Mac. Jason's our lead instructor, he uses a Mac all the time. He has Unity, he does a lot of development work for virtual reality. So you can totally use a Mac, and then you could build for mobile virtual reality. So Samsung Gear VR, Google Daydream, Google Cardboard. You could actually develop for the HTC Vive or for the Oculus. The only thing you can't do on a Mac is you can't run a Vive or an Oculus from a Mac. But in terms of using Unity, you can do pretty much everything else.
Yeah, so let me explain that a little further. When I use Unity on my Mac, I use it because I travel with my Mac. It's easier. I do have a desktop and another travel PC, and those ones are Windows machines. And I use the desktop because that's what I use mostly for when I'm testing my VR. But the majority of the code that I write and the work that I do is actually on my Mac, just because it's easier for me to take around.
Right. A lot of our students use Mac too.
A lot of our students use Mac. And they are actually developing. The reason you can't use a Mac is because you can't use integrated graphics, and at least mine has integrated graphics. You need a separate graphics card. You need a 970 or better, a GTX 970 or better, and there's a lot of laptops out there that now offer that separate dedicated graphics card just for you to run whatever you're doing. So you can use it for most of the development part. Like I work all my Unity work in there, and then I usually transfer my project over and test it on my desktop, and then I'll do maybe some work there, and then I'll transfer it back. That's usually how I'd handle it if I was using a Mac. The other advantage of the Mac is that I can kind of build to iOS devices very simple, very straightforward, instead of on a PC where I have an issue with that.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, you totally can. Like Macs, like we said at the end of the presentation, Unity is compatible with a Windows or a Mac. So whatever operating system you have, it should be fine.
Okay, Peter McRoy has another question, and this is curious if Samsung S6 is 6 degrees of freedom. So good question, because we just talked about this, I guess. So for those that don't know, Samsung S6 is for the Gear VR. So Gear VR is it's a mobile headset that you can move around. And the short answer is no. The long answer is that kind of is. So the true answer is no, because it's really 3 degrees of freedom. You can only rotate. You can't detect where you are in space with the Gear VR, so you can't like walk forward in your VR experience with the Gear VR on. What it does is it does a little bit of prediction for where your head should be when it's rotated by a certain amount. Like obviously, if I rotate my head, it's not staying in one place. It's actually rotating on my body and moving position. So it does a little guesstimation for where your head should be. But the reality is that it's not fully positionally tracked. So you're not going to be able to track where you are. Now that said, the S6 it isn't possible with, but with the later devices, the newest Android and the newest, the newest Android stuff, with AR Core, you can kind of cheat positional tracking with that plane detection that I talked about earlier. So I've seen this now where people mix up VR and AR to be able to use essentially what the Microsoft the Microsoft headsets are using, which is inside-out detection to detect where you are and move around in space. So they're using the AR core to be able to detect where they are in position-wise and then move around in that space using it. Haven't tried it myself. It's very possible and makes sense. I'm not sure how nauseating it is.
Next question is from Leonard Wedderburn. So Leonard is asking, are there any good job posting sites for VR jobs? Leonard, if you want to send me an email, my email is lou@academyvr.com. I have a great list of freelancing jobs for VR. So just email me and I can send that to you personally.
Yeah, there's also the other thing I do suggest, and this came up last time, is that I suggest you go to the sites that you want, or the companies that you want to work for, and look at their websites. Things like even Amazon has tons of VR postings, even though they have nothing in produce and show for it. They're really just testing the market. The other thing you can always do is if you work somewhere, is to go to your boss, and if you have a good idea for how VR can help your work, help your company, you go to them and say, I have this idea, can I pursue this?
Right.
And a lot of our students are actually, that's what's happened, is the students have gone into their supervisor and been like, I think this is a good idea, we should pursue this.
Right.
And they'll give them the time and resources to be able to start or test that theory.
Right. Build a prototype or build an app that gets used in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was that one. Number 8, Melissa P. Do you guys often teach in your courses people that identify as technology illiterate? I love the term. That's what my boss used to call himself.
Technology illiterate.
Yeah, a lot of the people we teach are from very beginners. Some of them have never touched code in their life. Some of them have never even thought about writing a program. It varies significantly from people who have absolutely no idea what they're doing to people who have been coding for years.
Yeah.
So most of what that offers the one-on-one part of it to give you kind of the advantage over what you want, like specifically what you're designing and looking for. The other thing that we suggest is if you really feel scared, try those tutorials that Lou's going to send out. I think you'll see that it's not as scary as it seems. Like there is a part of you that's going, oh, I don't want to do this. Like there's words, it's a whole new thing. There's numbers. Trust me, it's I get that feeling whenever I approach painting. So you're going to want to just try it once, and you'll see that the way that we take to teaching is we take a very gradual approach. So everything you learn it, and then we reiterate it, and then we go through another set. It's a teaching style that was like made by Berkeley at one point.
Yeah.
So it's designed to continue along and really help you develop so you get the full aspect of what you're learning. And I promise you that it seems scary, but you'll figure it out over time. And the thing is, it takes time. You'll start building that level of knowledge. So really, like you're going to expect something different from the course if you take it, or from going to those tutorials. It's building up that knowledge so you go from technology illiterate to a technology literate. So you get these pieces, you get all these parts, and you're going to learn like, what parts of a computer work, how this does that, and it may seem scary, but there's only one way to relieve yourself of being technology illiterate, and that's to go out and just keep testing it. Be scared about learning new things, but then do it anyway, and just keep going at it. All right, next question. You want to answer this one?
Sure. Jack Yabarando is asking, if you want to dive deep into ARKit, should you focus on Unity or Xcode/Swift 4, or do you use both? Actually, why don't you guys get it?
So ARKit, you can use Xcode. My brother is actually an ARKit developer, and a developer for these kind of things, and he used Xcode. And now the reason to use Xcode is if you want to use very specific AR stuff, so ARKit stuff. But the nice thing about Unity is if you ever want to build the AR core is also built into Unity. So, and they're trying to abstract out the difference between the two. So to make it so you're building one thing and you can build from that to AR core and ARKit.
Right.
So in that way, I'd have to say that I would probably use Unity. If you want to use something very specific in Xcode, then go for it by all means. On top of that, though, let me put a caveat in there, is that if you're using Unity, it actually builds to an Xcode project. So you can go in and change anything you want in Xcode if you wanted to. So Unity doesn't build directly from Unity onto the device. It goes Unity to Xcode, then from Xcode, you have to build text from Xcode to the device. So you can make changes inside the Xcode project if you want to.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Alive Zol is asking, apart from C# for developing augmented reality and virtual reality in Unity, are there other languages like Java, C++, Python, etc. that can be used with Unity? I've heard you answer this question enough times that I know.
Oh, there's a little more. Sometimes I don't answer the whole way. Go for it. Take it
I mean,
away.
I think I'm going to take the easy answer to your question, and really C# is the primary language of Unity, and C# is what you should be learning. There might be some other languages, but at that point, you're kind of just taking a workaround. And again, like we really focus on C# in our courses. You really focus on C#. We've had lots of people come from different programming languages or come from no programming experience, learn C#. So that's the, I mean, yes, there's other things, but that's the standard, that's the default. That's what you should go with
Great answer.
for Unity.
No, great answer. That's very true. So Unity for like pretty much everything I would do C# normally. You can, if you're really familiar with other programs, as long as they compile to machine code. So Python might be out of the equation here. You can use them as plugins. So I've often written C++ plugins that have to do like really heavy math computation to run on a separate thread and then come back into the C# code that I write. So yes, C# is really the answer to that. But if you feel like you want, or you're doing like maybe you're doing your master's or PhD and you really want to do a whole bunch of other stuff on top of that, then you can also bring another code as long as it can compile down to machine code. Oops.
AppG22 has another question. His question is, and these are awesome, guys. Keep the questions coming. So AppG22 is asking, I've been an animator for 10 years. How much C# Unity knowledge would I need to move to VR or AR, or is it on the job learning? Definitely some C# and Unity knowledge is going to really help you transition. We were working with one fellow actually who's working in visual effects. I think you already have as an animator a lot of the understanding, like computer literacy of different tools and different like not frameworks but like platforms, like Unity. So we could probably help you pick up the UI and the nav, and then maybe you can speak to like learn how much C# knowledge he needs to know.
Well, this is actually about one of our other instructors, Dan. Dan made, shout out to Dan, he made a game called What the Box.
Dan's getting lots of love.
Rocket Fist, yeah. And he came from a modeling background and moved into making it because he really felt like he wanted to write his own games. And he said he ended up loving coding more than animating.
And before that, he actually had an advertising degree.
Oh, really? I had no idea. I didn't know that part of the story. Dan's a great guy if you ever get a chance to talk to him. He goes to all sorts of meetups, but you should talk to him at some point. But he went from the modeling to creating applications basically using Unity to build out his first game, which was Rocket Fist, and then his subsequent games after that, which was What the Box and a couple other VR game. But those are, like, really, if you have a modeling background, it's going to save you and help you in whatever you're developing in Unity. And really, I do suggest it, even if you don't find you're going to use it in the end. As a developer myself, communicating with other modelers, if they understand what I want or what I need from them, it really helps the communication between the two of you.
Yeah, so in Dan's case, like as in your case, I think it's just another tool in your toolbox, right? It just makes you, when it comes to virtual reality and augmented reality, really understand how the apps are built, because ultimately that's in Unity, and it's just more, I guess, empowering you and your skill set moving into VR and AR.
Okay, we got LEY Park. Can the payment be separated monthly? This is yours. You got this.
Okay. So LEY Park is asking, can the payment be separated monthly, or does it have to be paid in full after the deposit is accepted and the course starts? So yes, LEY Park, we have financing plans, so we can divide the payment up into 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months. So we can really break it into small monthly payments, so don't worry about paying everything up front. If you want to get started, we want to make sure that we can enable you through a payment plan and get you started learning these skills so you could take them to creating your own apps or to like a new job working in VR, hopefully. So if you do want some more info on the payment plan, just shoot me an email. My email is lou@academyofvr.com, and we can get that sorted out for you.
All right, next question. Jack Y. Barondo. Do you have any experience with development on Meta 2? I do not. I read that and I looked it up, and I have never seen that headset before. That honestly surprised me.
Meta 2.
But it's it looks like it's basically an augmented reality.
Yes, Meta 2, yes. Yeah, Meta 2, I think, is a startup. You guys can Google it too. A startup. I think it's California, making an augmented reality headset. I remember reading about them like years ago, like not too long after the DK2 came out. Meta 2, or maybe earlier. Yeah, I don't think we have any experience with Meta.
We don't, but it used Unity. You can see if you go on the website, it shows you a bit about it. So they probably follow the same principles as HoloLens development. Hopefully, they probably have a bunch of tutorials on their own stuff for Meta 2. Yeah, if you have any questions while you're trying to learn how to develop,
Let us know,
fires,
Jack,
yeah.
if you have a Meta 2, let us know. It's that'd be cool.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on from that one.
Chris G is asking, are your courses a mix of AR and VR, or do you have a more specialized course that are just AR? So our course is really focused on Unity and like Jason said, giving you the foundational skills and building you up incrementally. And then through our one-on-ones, that's where we oftentimes drill down into specifics like, do you have a Google Cardboard or do you have an HTC Vive? Are you interested in VR or do you want to build augmented reality apps? So we can get pretty specific, I would say, for AR and VR.
Yeah, it's the classes themselves are kind of based around the principles of using positional tracking and going through and teaching you, make sure you have the code knowledge base as well as the understanding of Unity. But the one-on-ones are where we really dive deep into whatever you're doing, and depending on your level, we offer like a different kind of way of looking at things. So if you're really experienced, then it'll be more architectural based and maybe a lot of C# based if you're not used to C#. Or we'll offer a bunch of different ways of doing things and just theory on the actual.
And the class sizes are pretty small too. So if you're specifically, wanting to make some adjustments for augmented reality, like in a small class, it can be very personal where you're saying, hey guys, like, can we jump into this? Because I'm really interested in just, AR. So we don't do a separate class for AR and VR. We try to combine the two because there's so much overlap and we want basically to, have you be able to work on either platform. And really the best way to do that, again, is through Unity. That's why we teach Unity in our courses, and that's why we teach the concepts that we do.
All right, AppG has another question. AppG22, is Vancouver, BC a good spot for VR opportunities? That's where we are right now. Do you find more upstart studios here or more bigger established studios?
Great question.
Good question, and I would actually say it's all over the board. So the majority of my work I do in my office or at the Cube, which is a VR space here.
Yep.
And there's a lot of startup companies there. A lot of guys doing fantastic, cool projects. And then on top of that, the funding for that came from Microsoft because we have a big portion of Microsoft here. Microsoft is obviously working a lot in VR. And I know they have a bunch of VR teams here working on projects. And then also, there's also a whole bunch of other options here. Like there's Amazon. I don't know if Amazon website say they have lots of VR. If you look on their websites, this is where you figure out where they're showing it. So if you look on like Microsoft job opportunities,
e-commerce in VR,
e-commerce in VR. Actually, I'm sure the majority of the companies that I work for are in Vancouver. So I mean, I do work for companies that are outside of Vancouver, but the majority are inside of Vancouver.
So yeah, big and small. I think it's a great place for opportunities with the old game industry, film industry. But I mean, there's a lot of cities. I'm not sure if you're from Vancouver, but a lot of cities have some interesting, usually VR companies in each of them. Okay, next question, number 17. Keep the questions coming, guys. These are awesome. Is from Quantum Mechanic. So Quantum Mechanic is asking, are there any upcoming courses in Calgary? So Quantum Mechanic, we're not teaching local courses anymore. We've found that the online course is just a better outlet for our students and for us, simply because it gives us more time to cover all the topics that you need and to really, again, drill down, make sure that you get one-on-one help from a professional instructor and that they can kind of help you build what you're trying to create. So there's just no way of doing that personally. So we won't be teaching local classes anymore. But the online class is still very personal. You're still, through video conferencing just like this every week. So there's a consistent kind of commitment basis of having someone on the other end of the class. So it's basically the same. So, you still have someone there to keep you motivated and keep you engaged.
I just visited one of our students in Calgary, actually.
But that was like a
That's
personal
a chance
holiday.
thing, yeah. Okay, After22 asked, being based in Vancouver, are there classes you can take in personal locations? Kind of a similar question.
Yeah, so same answer. So FG, if you're in Vancouver, what we do is, for some of our Vancouver students, we have them actually come into our office in the Cube, and we'll do their one-on-ones sessions in the Cube. So again, if you're in Vancouver and that's what you want to do, send me an email at lou@academyofvr.com, and we can probably arrange that for you because you're in the same city. But honestly, online is done just like this, and it works really, really well for most of our classes. The internet's so fast and good these days that it's just like being in the same room as someone.
Yeah, it is. It's super. I mean, we do it all over the place, but really, I found that it works just as well in most cases. So, AppG22 asked again, are you able to animate in Unity, set keyframes as you would in Maya, or is it compatible with .ma/.mb files? You can animate in Unity. Honestly, I find it a little bit of, it's not great if you want to animate like moving people. I would normally do my animations in Maya or Blender if you're feeling up for it. You can, and Unity's actually making this even better. They added this new timeline feature and a bunch of other features, but really, it's not designed specifically as
So you animate externally, right? Then you import it into Unity.
That's really the best method, honestly, because Maya is so good at animation. But Unity does allow you, if you say you have things like you want to move around objects, you can create animations through that and store it and then play it in Unity as well. With keyframes, it's a normal setup. David F. Borunda asks, can you integrate video from a 360 camera into Unity for doing virtual tours of buildings? If not video, perhaps 360 pictures. Absolutely, to both of those. So a lot of our students too are filmmakers, so they've worked with 360 video or stereoscopic video, and Unity does allow you to be able to create that 360 video, but you can also do things like add interactions to that 360 video. Like, maybe you have buttons or you're using the gaze to interact.
Story tree, maybe.
Story trees. So definitely you can do 360 video, and it'll just treat it like it's basically a bubble around your head, unless you're doing stereoscopic when it kind of adds that third dimension to it.
Or for real estate, maybe you're a realtor, you want to do a 360 video of a home.
Yeah, my brother works for a company that does that kind of stuff.
There you go, bingo. Awesome. Is that the last question? Okay, it looks like we have we're out of questions now. Again, if you guys, something comes to mind after the workshop, feel free to email me at lou@academyofvr.com, whatever it is. Again, questions about virtual reality, augmented reality, pricing, the course, your business, what you want to do, your ideas. Just send me an email. Happy to connect and kind of offer some of our advice. But other than that, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for tuning in. We'd love to get to know you guys. We'd love to work with you. So please check out the course or feel free to reach out. Thanks for tuning in tonight.
See you guys. Have a wonderful night.
Bye.